Today, Liz is going to share some solutions for a tricky area of your landscaping. Steep slopes can often be difficult to care for. But Liz, what are some ideas that you have for our viewers?
We get a lot of requests for what to do with the bank that's kind of in front of a lot of people's property. It can be really steep, and mowing it just doesn't make sense a lot of the time. So we're often asked, what can we do to either reduce the slope, or what can we do to plant it and make it really as low maintenance as possible. So for the first project that I'm showing today, this was kind of a terraced slope. Down by the road, it gets pretty steep, but a little higher up on the bank, it wasn't quite so steep. So we did a combination here where we have a planting up at the top of the slope that has a more traditional wood mulch, but then as you get closer to the curb, we've got about a 5 to 6 foot bed there that's got some crushed cobbles instead of mulch. And what's really nice about those cobbles is that they lock together really well, and the bigger size of them, they're about the size of a baseball or so.
Yeah.
The weight of that, really holds to the bank well, and it doesn't slide down quite so much. And what's really nice about that too is that in the winter time, when you've got snow and salt and things that are getting sprayed up onto the bank, that stone, doesn't change color. It can withstand that, and the plants that we've chosen for the bottom of that slope are really tough. So those are custom, for that site, so that they can get blasted with that salt and that snow and the crushing wave of snow, and so it can really, make it look really nice, but it also serves a purpose too. And now you don't have to be mowing.
Yeah, they do look really good. What are some other ideas for planting on a slope?
Well, if the slope gets steeper, there are times when the bank is much larger, and in the second photo that I'm showing with you today, that is a much bigger slope planting. So it's the same concept as what we talked about for the first one, but instead of, kind of a 5 or 6 foot strip, that was more like 15. So that was a pretty decent sized slope. But again, up at the top, we've done a nice planting with a nice wood mulch and some hydrangea and whatnot to soften the look of that stone. And in the third project that I wanted to show today, this is a little bit different. So down at the bottom of this project, we used some boulders and whatnot to reduce that steepness. We kind of used those as a retaining wall down at the bottom to alleviate some of that slope so that we could use a wood mulch on the entire slope. So for that planting, we have some evergreens and whatnot. Those aren't necessarily going to be getting the salt and the snow, because that's along a residential driveway, as opposed to being up against the road. So we can be a little bit more creative with our plants there. So those evergreens will fill out over time and really spread on that bank. And then we've added some hydrangeas and some things later in the season to give that some color. If you do use wood mulch on a slope, you want to make sure that you're picking something with a bigger, coarser shred to it. That more coarse texture tends to lock together a little bit better as it settles, so that you don't have so much washout. But you want to, as you can see in the middle of this project too, there's a little drain that comes down. We did line with some cobbles. Up above, there's some water that comes down that slope. So we wanted to make a little swale and give that water a place to go. And it comes out to the stone at the bottom and then just kind of dissipates from there. So it can be really difficult to mulch or to plant on a slope, but you just got to be a little bit creative. And pick the plants that are perfect for the site and use some materials that are going to hold up to that, and you can turn something that's really difficult with something quite pretty.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Liz. We appreciate you coming on every single time and giving us some garden and landscaping tips.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm Liz Snyder, your home gardener from Hillside Garden Landscaping.
You can watch home gardening tips every week only on Around the Tiers. For today's segment, and to find out more, head to WBNG.com, click on Around the Tiers, and select Home Gardener from the drop-down menu. And if you have any gardening questions you want answered, send them to Liz at hillsidegl.com. And don't forget, if you have an idea for Around the Tiers or want to be on, let me know. You can do that by emailing me at lpollock@wbng.com, getting in touch with me on Facebook, that's Logan Pollock WBNG, even on Twitter at LoganP_WBNG. You can also follow along with what's happening on the show on Instagram. Just search at Around the Tiers WBNG. Thanks for watching a shortened edition of Around the Tiers. Stay tuned, we'll have a final check of your weather, and 12 News at Noon wraps up next.
This has been Around the Tiers.